The wind howled across the frozen plains, a sharp and bitter force that cut through the layers of armor and fabric alike. Snow swirled like living spirits, blinding the eyes and burying the landscape in a white, unbroken sheet. In the midst of this frozen wasteland, two figures lay trapped beneath the ice and snow, their once proud forms barely visible under the relentless storm. They were not ordinary beings. Their skin shimmered faintly beneath the frost, marked with strange symbols and flowing patterns of their royal lineage. They were sisters, queens of a faraway alien world, and they were dying. The elder sister stirred first, her eyes opening beneath the icy crust. The cold had slowed her body, but her mind was sharp. Through the psychic bond that had always linked her to her sister, she reached out, calling softly, hoping the other could respond. "I cannot hold on much longer," the younger sister whispered, her voice barely audible through the frozen armor that bound her. Her breathing was shallow, misting in the icy air. "The storm, it is too strong. Our fleet, gone." The elder's mind surged with worry and despair. She had always been the strong one, the leader, the one who made decisions that shaped the fate of thousands. And yet, here she was, powerless against snow, wind, and time. Their escape had been cut short. The enemy had been faster, stronger, and smarter. Their convoy had fallen in flames, leaving only this frozen grave for the queens. I feel their presence," the younger sister muttered, her hand pressing against the icy ground. "They are near scouts, enemies." The elder shivered, not just from cold, but from fear. Their enemies had the technology to sense energy signatures even beneath thick layers of ice. They could find them in minutes, or perhaps seconds. Death was approaching faster than the storm itself. Far across the white horizon, a small shape moved. At first it was hard to see, just a dark shadow against the endless snow. But it was moving with purpose, stumbling, but determined. It was not alien. Its form was smaller, weaker, but it carried a strange determination in the way it struggled forward. It was a human. The human, known as Rylan among his crew, had been caught in the same storm while traveling through this frozen world. His small scout ship had been damaged in the high winds, forcing him to make an emergency landing. Alone, with his communication systems failing and his navigation offline, he wandered through the blizzard, searching for shelter. He did not expect to find royalty buried in the snow. He did not even know that such beings existed, but fate, as it often did, had other plans. As Rylan trudged through the deep drifts, his sensors began to flicker. A faint energy reading appeared on the display. The reading was weak, inconsistent, but it was unmistakable. Something alive, something powerful, was buried beneath the snow. His curiosity and instincts kicked in. He ignored the voice in his head, warning him to retreat. With careful movements, he began digging through the thick, icy layers. Minutes passed like hours as his gloved hands tore through the frozen crust. The storm tried to push him back, whipping his body with snow and ice, but he persisted. Then, at last, his hand brushed against something hard beneath the snow. Something organic. He paused. The readings were confirmed. There were 2 life signs here, faint but undeniably present. One larger, one smaller. Their energy signatures intertwined in a way he had never seen, and they were fading fast.
Rylan gritted his teeth.
He had no weapons to fight the storm, no guarantee that he could save them, but he could not turn away. He began the arduous task of freeing the queens, layer by layer, risking frostbite and exhaustion with every movement. When finally the elder sister emerged, gasping for air, Rylan caught her just before she collapsed. Her skin was pale, almost transparent beneath the frost, but her eyes glimmered with intelligence and authority. She looked at him, confusion and suspicion mingled in her gaze. You are alive," she whispered, her voice hoarse, filled with disbelief. Rylan nodded, still supporting her weight. "You're alive too," he said simply, trying to keep his own fear at bay.
"You're going to be okay!"
The younger sister appeared next, shivering violently, her energy barely detectable. She leaned against her sister, trembling, her alien features twisted in pain and confusion. Who are you?" she asked, her voice faint. Rylane said, realizing how small that word sounded. Chimere to their regal presence. "I don't know who you are, but I will not let you die here." The queens exchanged a glance through their psychic bond, a silent conversation that carried more meaning than words could hold. They were confused, suspicious, and afraid. Humans were primitive, unpredictable creatures. Why would one risk himself to save strangers, and aliens, at that? But there was no time for suspicion. The storm showed no mercy. Rylane dragged them toward his small ship, bracing against the biting wind. Every step was a battle. Snow burned their skin, and the cold bit into their armor, but they moved together as best they could. The queen's weakened bodies could barely support themselves, yet they lent what strength they could to Ryland's efforts. Inside the ship, the human worked quickly. The interior was cramped, systems failing, heat nearly non-existent. He stripped off his outer layers and wrapped them around the queen's, pressing his own body heat to theirs as best he could. Their breaths came in shallow, misted puffs as he monitored their vital signs. "You
saved us,"
the elder sister said weakly. Her voice was still regal, still commanding, even as she lay shivering on the floor of a human ship.
"Why?" Rylane shrugged, trying to make a joke to lighten the fear.
"Someone had to. I'm not a fan of dying alone in a snowstorm," he said. But inside, he felt the weight of the moment. These beings were powerful, perhaps more than he could comprehend. He could not predict their response once they recovered. The younger sister looked at him, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Our people," she murmured. "Our empire will know we survived." "Not yet," Rylane said. "But I'll get you somewhere safe." Hours passed. The storm continued outside, relentless and merciless. The queens, wrapped in human clothing, began to stir more fully, their alien physiology responding to the warmth. They tried to rise, their limbs weak, but their minds began to scan the ship's systems. Their alien knowledge clashed with human technology, but slowly, understanding emerged. "This vessel, primitive," the elder muttered. "But it may suffice," Rylane smiled faintly. "Primitive, yes, but it can keep you alive for now." The sisters were silent for a time, focusing their energy on survival, sensing the human's intent, measuring his courage. He did not leave them alone. He shared what little food he had, monitored their vital signs, and even repaired some of the ship's failing systems to provide minimal warmth. Yet beyond the temporary shelter, danger loomed. Enemy scouts were likely scanning the planet, drawn by residual energy signatures from the queens. Rylane knew they could arrive at any moment. He had no weapons powerful enough to fight them. No reinforcements, only his wits, courage, and the two fragile queens he had saved. Through the hours of silence and frost, the human and the alien queens formed a fragile bond. It was not friendship, yet not trust, but recognition. Each understood the other's value. Rylane had shown bravery without expectation. The queens, even in their weakened state, sensed his importance. Finally, as the blizzard outside began to die down slightly, the elder sister looked at him with something new in her eyes. Respect. "You are not like other humans," she said softly.
"You risked yourself for us."
Rylane shrugged.
It's what anyone should do.
If I left you there, I couldn't forgive myself. The younger sister remained quiet, but her gaze softened. A spark of hope had appeared where there had been only fear and despair. Perhaps survival was still possible. Perhaps this human was more than primitive. Perhaps he was something the galaxy had underestimated entirely. As the first faint light of alien dawn crept over the icy horizon, the three of them remained in the small ship, battered, exhausted, and uncertain of what awaited them. Outside, the world was still a frozen battlefield. Inside, a fragile warmth held two queens and one human together, fighting against time, cold, and enemies they could not yet see. And somewhere in the distant snow, life waited. Danger, yes, but also the possibility of hope. The human had found them, and for the first time in countless hours, the queens believed they might live. The storm had lessened, but the air remained bitter and sharp. The snow no longer whipped like wild beasts, but the landscape was still a frozen wasteland. Inside the small human ship, the two alien queens slowly regained strength, though every movement caused tremors of pain. Their breathing steadied, and their alien senses began to adjust to the warmth and safety of the human vessel. Raylan, exhausted but vigilant, monitored the ship's systems and their vitals. The sisters were still weak, but they were alive. For a moment, relief washed over him, a brief warmth in the cold uncertainty that surrounded them. He knew better than to celebrate too soon. Survival was never guaranteed in this world, and the storm was not the only danger. Through the ship's faint sensors, he detected faint movements beyond the icy plains. But small, sharp blips in the distance. Scouts, enemy drones. Their technology was advanced, capable of tracing energy signatures, and now it had found them. Ryland's heart sank. He had no weapons capable of matching even a single drone, let alone a fleet that might be tracking the queens. He turned to the elder sister, who had been observing his movements quietly. Her eyes were sharper now, more alert, as if her mind was already calculating the situation. "They are coming," she said simply, her voice steady. Even weak, her presence commanded attention. Ryland nodded. "I know. I've seen them. Scouts, I think."
They are looking for you. I don't have much to fight with, but I can delay them.
Maybe long enough for you to recover more? The younger sister, sitting on a bench with trembling hands, looked between them.
"You will fight for us?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Her eyes were wide, still fragile, but filled with cautious hope. "I will try," Ryland said. "I'm not a soldier, but I know this terrain. I can use the snow, the blizzards, the ice. I can hold them off, at least for a while." The elder sister considered him, scanning every movement. Humans were unpredictable, often underestimated. And yet, there was a resolve in him she had not expected. "Then we must work together," she said finally. "We cannot move yet, but we can assist in small ways, directly or indirectly." The younger sister nodded, though she still shivered. "Anything," she murmured. "We owe our lives to you." Ryland prepared. He pulled together all the spare equipment he could find, rudimentary weapons, sensors, and traps. He studied the surrounding terrain from the ship's view screens, noting where the snow was deep and where the ice formed natural barriers. If the drones came too close, they could fall into pits or get stuck in the ice if he was clever. As the first blips of enemy scouts neared the area, Ryland stepped outside, bracing himself against the wind. The queens watched from the ship, weak but alert. Their psychic link allowed them to communicate silently, and now they began to guide him. One suggested subtle energy manipulations to interfere with the drone sensors. The other whispered tactical advice through mental signals he could barely interpret, but enough to act. The drones appeared on the horizon, small but deadly, their energy pulses scanning the snow. Rylan felt the fear rising, sharp and heavy in his chest, but he forced it down. Every second counted. He moved through the ice, laying traps of frozen debris and rock, hiding small charges he had cobbled together from the ship's damaged systems. The drones came closer, their sensors sweeping methodically. One tripped over a hidden pitfall, spinning uncontrollably before crashing into the snow. Another shot a pulse beam that shattered part of the ice, but Rylan ducked and dodged, narrowly avoiding death. He worked with quiet focus, using his knowledge of human tactics and his instincts. The Queen's subtle guidance gave him an edge he could never have had alone. Inside the ship, the Queens watched and calculated. Even weak, they could feel the energy of the drones, the flow of their scanning patterns. The elder sister sent a pulse of her own, disrupting one drone's sensors, making it misread its surroundings. The younger sister did the same, her energy flickering in sync with her sister's. They were far from full strength, but their combined abilities, even limited, turned the tide in small ways. The drones faltered, and Rylan pressed forward. He used a mix of traps, deception, and raw courage, guiding them into ambushes. One after another, the enemy units were delayed or disabled. The Queens observed silently, impressed by his ingenuity and his willingness to risk everything for their survival. Hours passed. The sun barely rose above the horizon, weak and distant, casting a pale light on the frozen plains. The blizzard had left a blanket of fresh snow, hiding the damage and the traps laid by the human. Yet the threat was not gone. Larger forces would soon arrive, and Rylan knew he could not hold them off indefinitely. He returned to the ship, exhausted and battered. His body ached, frostbite threatening his fingers and face. But he was alive. The Queens were still watching, their eyes no longer filled with suspicion, but with cautious admiration. "You fight well," the elder sister said, her voice calm but firm. "Your courage is rare. Few humans
Could have done this. Rylan shook his head.
I don't feel like a hero. I just can't let them take you. You're alive because I refused to leave you behind." The younger sister smiled faintly, a small gesture, but filled with gratitude.
You are more than we imagined.
Perhaps humans have strength beyond their size, beyond their technology. The Queens began to discuss their next steps. They could feel their energy returning slowly, though not enough for direct combat. Their goal was to survive long enough to escape the frozen planet and reach a safe world where they could recover fully. But the enemy scouts had already reported their presence, and a full fleet would arrive soon. Rylan listened as they spoke, piecing together fragments of alien strategy. Their technology was advanced beyond his understanding, but the principles were clear. He could help them if he stayed alert and acted cleverly. Together, they could buy enough time to survive. Night fell, though the planet's weak sun cast a dim glow. The wind had calmed, leaving an eerie silence over the frozen plains. The Queens remained inside the ship, observing and supporting Rylan as he prepared for the next wave of scouts. Even weak, their presence was comforting, a reminder that he was not alone in the vast, empty cold. When the first large enemy unit appeared on sensors, Rylan was ready. The Queen's guidance helped him place decoys, energy distortions, and traps. He moved quickly and silently through the snow, dodging pulses of alien energy, luring the attackers into ambushes. One drone collided with a hidden ice ridge, another fell into a concealed crevice, and another misfired on its own weapons due to subtle interference from the Queens. By dawn, the human and the alien Queens had survived the first major wave. The snow was littered with the wreckage of enemy drones, and the faint energy of their commanders pulsed in the distance, but the fight was far from over. A fleet would arrive, and Rylan knew their survival depended on more than courage alone.
They needed a plan, a way to escape the frozen world, and time to recover. The elder sister approached him, her alien presence commanding attention despite her weakened state.
"You have risked much for us. Few would do this. Even our own people might have hesitated.
Rylan smiled faintly, brushing snow from his hair. I don't care about titles or empires.
I care about life. That's all I've ever known. The younger sister, still shivering but alert, nodded. You are extraordinary. Perhaps humans are not as simple as we believed. The bond between them was fragile, but growing. The queens had been trapped, powerless, and facing death in the snow. Now, with this human, they had a chance. A small chance, but one worth fighting for. As the sun rose fully over the icy plains, Rylan and the queens prepared for the next challenge. Enemy forces would not relent, but neither would they. They were alive, together, and that alone was victory for now. The storm had passed, but the battle had just begun. The human, exhausted and battered, glanced at the queens. Their eyes met, filled with understanding and trust, and he realized that his actions had already changed something in the galaxy. For two alien queens buried in snow and dying, a human had come, and survival was once again possible. And somewhere in the distant icy horizon, the enemy fleet moved closer, unaware that they were being watched, delayed and outwitted by courage, determination, and a spark of unexpected alliance. The frozen plains were quiet now, the enemy scouts retreating after their first failure. But the threat remained. Rylan knew the larger fleet was still out there, moving steadily toward the queens. He wiped sweat and frost from his brow, checking his traps and repairs. Inside the ship, the queens lay resting, their breathing steady but shallow. Their strength was returning slowly, and he could feel it. Something powerful was stirring. The elder sister opened her eyes, the first time she had fully awakened since the storm. Her gaze swept the interior of the small human ship. Even in weakness, she radiated authority. "We are ready to move," she whispered, though her voice trembled slightly from exhaustion. Rylan glanced at her, surprised.
Move? The storm is gone, but the fleet will be here soon.
"You're not fully recovered. We can wait no longer," she said firmly. "Our people cannot survive if we do not act. We are queens, and even weak, we must awaken what is ours." The younger sister, sitting beside her, nodded. "The hidden warship."
Beneath the ice, it is the key. If we awaken it, we can fight them all.
Rylan froze. Warship?
"Hidden beneath the ice? You mean a real ship, not just some story?" The elder sister's eyes gleamed. "Not a story. An ancient vessel, buried by time, waiting for our return. Its systems are dormant, but its power is beyond anything these enemies wield. We need only awaken it, and survival becomes possible." Rylan's mind raced. He had never imagined humans, aliens, and ancient technology colliding in such a way. Yet the queens spoke with certainty, as if the answer had always been clear to them.
"We must act quickly," the elder continued. "The fleet approaches."
They will not wait, and we cannot remain here. Our survival depends on speed, stealth, and precise control of the warship's systems.
Rylan nodded. "Then show me what to do." "I'll follow your lead." The queens guided him, their alien knowledge blending with his human intuition.
The ship's sensors detected faint signals beneath the ice, buried so deeply that it would have been invisible to normal scans. Rylan and the queens worked together to locate the ancient warship. It lay under thick layers of snow and frozen rock, dormant for centuries. Its hull shimmered faintly beneath the ice, a testament to alien engineering beyond anything humans had ever created. The elder sister reached out mentally, her energy flowing through the ship's systems, connecting with the hidden vessel. The human watched in awe as faint lights flickered beneath the ice.
"It's responding," she whispered. "The ship recognizes its queens." The younger sister joined, their energies combining in harmony.
Slowly, the dormant warship stirred, ancient engines humming to life beneath the ice. Rylan could feel the vibrations through the ground and the ship itself. The sheer scale of the vessel was staggering, far larger than any human ship he had seen. Its power radiated like a star trapped beneath the frozen planet. But, awakening, the ship was not without risk. The enemy fleet, now in range, detected the energy surge. Scout drones and larger vessels turned toward the Queen's location. Rylan realized they had only moments before a full assault would arrive. He grabbed whatever makeshift weapons and tools he had, preparing to defend the Queen's while the warship came online. The first wave of enemy fighters approached swiftly. Rylan ran into the open, using the terrain to his advantage. He dodged energy blasts, tripped enemy drones with improvised traps, and guided them toward icy ridges that could collapse under their weight. His body ached from the cold and exhaustion, but he pressed on. Every second bought the Queen's time to complete the awakening. Inside the ship, the elder and younger sisters focused their energies. Their strength was limited, but together they channeled it into the warship's systems. Lights blinked, engines hummed, and defensive shields began to rise around the massive vessel. It was awakening fully, responding to its rightful rulers. Rylan felt a surge of hope. The Queen's power was extraordinary, even in weakened form. Watching them, he understood that their strength was not just in technology, but in their unity, intelligence, and determination. He felt honored to fight alongside them, even as a human. The enemy's first assault hit with brutal force. Energy beams struck the small ship, shattering panels and cracking the hull. Rylan dodged, narrowly avoiding a blast that would have ended him. He fired whatever he could, using traps, debris, and luck to hold the enemy back. The Queen's guidance helped him anticipate attacks, moving him and the few remaining drones into positions that slowed the advance. As the battle raged, the warship finally broke free from the ice. Its massive hull rose, gleaming with alien technology. Energy shields formed, and weapons systems powered up, guided by the Queen's psychic link. Rylan watched in awe as the once dormant vessel became a beacon of power, ready to confront the enemy fleet. The Queens communicated with him through their psychic bond, giving him instructions and strategies.
"Hold them back a little longer," the elder sister said. "We are almost ready."
Your courage is the key, the younger sister added. We will not forget this.
You are part of our survival. Trust yourself.
Rylan's heart pounded. He realized that without his human instincts, his willingness to act when others might hesitate, the Queens could not have completed the awakening. Their power was immense, but it needed his guidance in this critical moment. The enemy fleet launched a more coordinated attack. Fighters swarmed, energy beams illuminated the frozen plains, and explosions shook the ground. Rylan ran, dodged, and countered as best he could. Every trap he had laid, every diversion he created, slowed them. He could feel the Queen's energy pulsing through him, guiding him in subtle ways. Finally, the warship's systems came fully online. Energy shields flared, repelling the enemy attacks. Its weapons locked onto the incoming fleet, firing precise, powerful beams that disabled multiple ships at once. The sheer firepower was overwhelming, and the enemy fighters began to retreat in confusion and fear. Rylan, battered and bleeding from minor injuries, took a moment to catch his breath. He watched the warship, a symbol of alien might and his unlikely alliance, fight with precision and strength. The Queen's powers, combined with the technology, had turned the tide. What had seemed impossible was now reality. Inside the warship's command interface, the elder and younger sisters directed every system. They were still weak, but their intellect and coordination guided the massive vessel with skill and clarity. They began to understand the human beside them, not as a primitive creature, but as a partner. His courage, his quick thinking, and his willingness to risk everything had made this victory possible. The enemy fleet, now in retreat, would regroup. But for this moment, the Queens and the human had survived. The frozen planet no longer seemed like a prison. Instead, it had become the stage for a remarkable alliance, one forged in courage, determination, and shared struggle. Rylan collapsed beside the ship, exhausted but exhilarated. The queens approached, their presence steady and powerful, despite their weakened bodies. The elder sister placed a hand on his shoulder, an alien gesture of respect and gratitude. You have done more than any human we have known. You have saved us, and in doing so, you have saved countless others. The younger sister smiled faintly. We owe you our lives, perhaps more than that. You have proven that bravery is not limited to any one species. Rylan shook his head. I only did what I had to. I couldn't leave you there. I couldn't watch you die in the snow. The queens exchanged a glance through their psychic bond, a silent conversation passing between them. They understood that this human, small and fragile compared to their empire, had something extraordinary. Courage that could not be measured by technology, strength that could not be calculated in numbers, and a heart that refused to abandon those in need. As night fell on the frozen plains, the warship loomed over the ice like a guardian, its lights cutting through the dark. Rylan, though exhausted, felt a sense of purpose and belonging. He had come to this planet as a mere explorer, caught in a storm, and now he was part of something far greater. A battle for survival, a chance to protect life across the galaxy, and an alliance that would change everything. The queens, though still recovering, began to plan their next move. The enemy fleet would return, larger and more prepared. But now they had something the enemy could not anticipate: the courage of a human, the unity of two alien queens, and a warship awakened from centuries of sleep, ready to defend them. For the first time since the storm began, hope burned brightly. The frozen planet was no longer a grave. It was a battlefield, yes, but one where survival, courage, and alliance had already triumphed. Rylan stood beside the queens, looking out over the icy horizon. We survived today, he said softly.
And if we survive tomorrow, who knows what we can do? The elder sister's eyes gleamed with determination. Tomorrow, we fight.
Tomorrow we reclaim what was lost, and we will not fail, not with you beside us.
The younger sister nodded, and perhaps
Humanity will no longer be seen as primitive. Perhaps the galaxy will learn that courage comes in many forms. The three of them stood together, united by circumstance, choice, and survival. The frozen plains had tested them, but they had endured. And now, as the stars began to twinkle in the alien night sky, they prepared for the battles yet to come, stronger together than any of them could have imagined alone. The human and the alien queens had awakened power, courage, and hope. And in that moment, the galaxy shifted slightly, forever changed by the alliance forged in snow, danger, and trust. The icy plains were silent now, but the quiet was deceptive. Rylan stood beside the alien queens on the deck of the awakened warship, their combined presence radiating strength and purpose. The enemy fleet was returning, larger this time, with the full might of a force determined to eliminate the queens and erase their bloodline from the galaxy. Rylan's body ached from frostbite and exhaustion, but his mind was clear. He had fought alongside the queens before, and now the final challenge awaited. The elder sister surveyed the approaching enemy ships, her eyes sharp and commanding. "This is the culmination," she said. "We fight not only for survival, but for the future of our people. We cannot fail." The younger sister stepped closer to Rylan, her voice calm but resolute. "We are stronger together. Your courage will guide us, human. Without it, even our power cannot match their fleet." Rylan swallowed, gripping the railing. "Then let's give them everything we've got. We survive, and we end this." The enemy ships moved with precision, their energy pulses scanning for weaknesses. Rylan and the queens prepared the warship's weapons. Massive cannons lined the hull, shimmering with alien energy, while defensive shields hummed around the vessel. The queens coordinated with perfect synchronization, their psychic link guiding every system. Even in weakened form, their intellect and strategy were unmatched. The first wave of enemy fighters approached quickly, small and fast. Ryland positioned himself near a control console, ready to coordinate traps and diversions, while the Queens activated the warship's weapons. Energy beams lit up the icy sky as the battle began. The enemy expected an easy victory, but the awakened warship moved with precision, guided by the Queens and influenced by Ryland's human instincts. The small fighters were dispatched with calculated strikes, but the larger capital ships pressed forward. Ryland moved through the command deck, using his knowledge of human tactics to suggest maneuvers.
"Focus on the lead ships! Draw them into the trap zones!" he shouted.
The Queens nodded, adjusting shields and targeting systems with flawless timing. A massive energy pulse from the warship struck the first enemy cruiser, disabling its engines and sending it crashing into the ice below. The Queen's psychic coordination allowed the human to anticipate the enemy's next moves, guiding traps and defensive energy fields with uncanny precision. Ryland realized that this alliance was more than strategy. It was instinct, courage, and trust combined. The battle raged across the frozen plains, brilliant flashes of energy lighting the night sky. Ryland dodged bursts of enemy fire as he worked tirelessly to maintain defensive systems. He felt every strike of the enemy as if it were his own, every explosion shaking his body and testing his resolve. The Queens, though still recovering, directed the warship with unparalleled skill, their power amplifying the ship's weapons and shields. The enemy capital ships closed in, their energy pulses massive and devastating. One ship fired a concentrated beam directly at the warship, capable of cutting through its shields. Ryland acted without hesitation, rerouting power to the defensive systems and guiding the Queens to focus their energy on reinforcement. The beams struck, but the shields held, sparking and cracking under the pressure. The elder sister's eyes glowed with determination.
"Hold your ground! Focus all energy on the shields and return fire!" the younger sister added. "We will not fall today. Trust in our combined strength." Ryland's hands flew over controls, rerouting power, activating emergency traps, and launching counterattacks.
He placed himself at the heart of the warship's defense, coordinating strikes that would disable enemy weaponry while protecting the Queens. Every decision mattered, every second counted. Despite exhaustion and pain, Ryland pushed forward. He realized that human instinct, courage, quick thinking, and willingness to risk everything was crucial to survival. The Queen's alien technology was powerful, but without his guidance in this chaotic, fast-moving battle, their victory could not be guaranteed. The warship's weapons struck the enemy capital ships with devastating accuracy. Massive beams tore through hulls, crippling engines and weapon systems. The Queen's energy pulses disrupted the enemy shields, leaving them vulnerable. One by one, the enemy ships fell, crashing into the frozen plains below, or spinning helplessly into space. Ryland noticed a massive cruiser attempting to flank them, its energy weapon aimed at the Queens. Without thinking, he moved to intercept, activating an emergency maneuver to divert the attack. Energy beams flashed dangerously close, but he succeeded in guiding the cruiser into the warship's firing path. The Queen's combined powers struck with precision, destroying the enemy vessel in a brilliant explosion. The battle was not without cost. Ryland's body screamed from exhaustion, his arms and legs trembling, but he refused to stop. The Queens recognized his determination, their psychic link conveying admiration and gratitude. Even in this moment of extreme danger, their trust in him solidified, their bond stronger than ever. The enemy fleet, now disorganized and overwhelmed, began to retreat. Ryland and the Queens pressed the advantage, pursuing the remaining ships with strategic precision. The warship moved with agility and strength, guided by the alien sisters and the human whose courage had made the difference. One by one, the enemy vessels fell, unable to match the combined power of the awakened warship and its united pilots. Finally, the battlefield quieted. The enemy fleet had retreated beyond the icy horizon, leaving the Queens and Ryland standing victorious. The warship loomed over the frozen plains, its shields humming and weapon systems active, a testament to the power of alliance, courage, and determination. The elder sister approached Relen, her alien hand resting on his shoulder. "You have done more than any human could have been expected to do," she said.
You have not only saved our lives but preserved the future of our empire. Your courage has reshaped the galaxy. The younger sister nodded, her eyes glowing faintly with gratitude.
"We owe you everything. Without your bravery, we would have perished in the snow. You have shown us the value of trust and alliance, and we will not forget it." Rylan shook his head, exhausted, but smiling faintly. "I only did what I had to. I couldn't leave you there. I couldn't watch you die."
That's all I did.
The queens exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. They understood that this human, small and fragile compared to their empire, had shown something extraordinary. Courage, intelligence, and compassion that could not be measured by technology or rank. He had become more than a survivor. He had become a partner. The queens activated the warship's navigation systems. The frozen planet could no longer contain them, and there were safe worlds where they could recover fully and regroup. Rylan stood beside them, still weary, but his spirit renewed by the victory and the bond he had formed with the alien sisters. As the warship lifted from the icy plains, the human and the queens looked out over the horizon. The enemy fleet was gone, their pursuit ended, but the lesson remained clear. Courage, determination, and alliance could overcome even the most advanced technology and overwhelming odds. The elder sister spoke quietly, her voice carrying both authority and respect. "The galaxy has changed today. Our people will know that we survived, not just through power, but through the courage of one human who refused to abandon life." The younger sister smiled. "Perhaps humanity will be seen differently now. Perhaps they will be recognized for strength beyond what we imagined." "You have taught us that bravery comes in many forms." Rylan felt a warmth he had never known. He had started this journey as a lone explorer, caught in a blizzard and unsure of his place in the galaxy. Now, he stood as a partner to two alien queens, survivors and leaders of their empire, and a symbol of the unexpected power of human courage. The warship soared into space, leaving the frozen planet behind. Its massive hull gleamed under distant stars, a testament to the bond between human and alien, a victory born of courage, intelligence, and unity. As the stars stretched into infinity, Rylan and the queens looked forward to a future filled with possibility. The battles were not over. The galaxy remained dangerous, but they had proven that together they could overcome anything. The human had saved two queens buried in snow, and in doing so, he had awakened hope for countless lives across the stars. The queens and the human had formed a bond that transcended species, culture, and expectation. They had discovered the value of courage, the power of trust, and the impact of a single act of bravery. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary: survival, alliance, and the spark of hope that comes when beings choose to fight together rather than alone. For Rylan, the journey had changed him. He had faced fear, exhaustion, and near certain death, yet he had persevered. For the queens, the human had become a symbol, a reminder that the strength of life did not always lie in power or technology, but in the heart, willing to act when others might hesitate. The frozen planet, once a place of despair and death, was now a memory of triumph. The warship, guided by alien queens and a brave human, charted a course toward recovery, unity, and a new era where species could rely on one another, rather than fear each other. And so, as they traveled through the infinite stars, the three of them, two alien queens and one human, stood together, ready for whatever challenges awaited. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and opportunity, but they faced it as one. They had survived storms, enemies, and the impossible, and they had forged a bond that would endure, a symbol of hope for every being who ever faced the cold, the darkness, and the unknown. In the end, A human had saved 2 alien queens buried in snow, and in doing so had changed the course of history. The universe had witnessed courage, alliance, and the strength of the unexpected, and somewhere in the vastness of space, hope burned brighter than any star, guiding them forward into the future.